So we start off part 4 immediately with a moral choice here. We look down to the right and we can actually see a marksman fighting one of the prison guards. But we'll want to take out the marksman because we helped the prison guard get through that situation. It's actually a good morality decision. I believe if you ignore it, it's a neutral one, given that you didn't kill the guard yourself. It doesn't really affect you morality at all. But yeah, we want to help him out to get as much good morale as we can for the good ending.
Oh, come on, we're busted out over here.
But here we'll have another introduction of Hermes, who is basically the straight up evil guy in the entirety of the game.
You cannot escape what I bring about.
But yeah, the more on his story is he's basically just straight up evil, loves killing, sadomasochistic. If it were any more obvious, he's the pure evil guy of the group of 3, then, you know, he was the gas chamber operator at Carnate and literally used it on himself to see what it was like. So, he's a bit cuckoo. But here we can actually see a niche that is the Slayers. They're actually really harmed by lights. Bright spotlights or any particular light that generates a heavy beam. Not like our flashlight. But spotlights will burn them instantly whenever they get in the light cast by them. So they will eventually just drop dead after they get into a spotlight. So we can use that to our advantage and just kind of stand in this light, and anytime they'll get near it, they just burst into flames. I'm not really sure what happened with that Slayer's AI, but it was just kind of standing there after it spawned. Probably just broken pathing or something else along the lines. But yeah, we can use that spotlight in this rec yard to our advantage, so we can save some ammo for the Slayers. Marksmen are unaffected by the light, but the Slayers will have the negative effect of being burnt by it, so we do use that for them. Marksman's weakness is just headshots, so we can use that to our advantage.
Show me again that thing you do. I love to watch you work.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that the guy that voices Hermes also voices the sniper from Team Fortress 2. So that's kind of interesting. But here we have more Slayers that come in, and there is a guy throwing grenades up top, so we kind of want to stay away from the monsters because he'll hit us too. And unfortunately the grenades have a gigantic range, so I just end up saying screw that, run back and let him start dealing with things that are coming for us. But there are a ton of marksmen and not a whole lot of cover, so we want to try and take out as many as quickly as possible. So, headshots are the way. So yeah, unfortunately we don't have like any cover in these rec yards, so we just want to try and take them out as soon as possible. But here I go into Insanity form, and we take advantage of the fact that we have the slam with the spikes, which is highly damaging to any ground-based stuff. So as you can see, we're kind of cleaning house with just the special. Your Insanity modes can actually start doing a ton of work for you once they start getting leveled up. So it's a good idea to start leveling it before you start getting into the clusters of enemies. But there, I actually used one of the marksmen to hit another one of the marksmen, which you can do. So if you don't have cover, you can actually use an enemy as cover. If there is a ranged enemy trying to shoot you, and you have a big enough other enemy. And there was a machine gun in this corner. I didn't use it, but at the same time, our insanity mode was definitely good enough to take care of everything there. And liberal use of grenades or flashbangs will go a long way as well. As said in part 1, my grenade button was actually broke for a huge majority of the first part of the game. So if you're wondering why I'm not using flashbangs or anything, because the button was actually unmapped and just wasn't working. So I ended up fixing it after the fact, whenever I started needing dynamite to open walls and stuff. But until that point, I didn't find it super necessary to have grenades. But they will help. Having an extra option is never bad. But here we can actually see that guard die in the middle of the cutscene, and we know that he dropped a shotgun, so I immediately go and get it. The shotgun is probably the single best CC weapon in this game, because anytime you hit something like dead center, it actually has a knockdown or a stumble effect for most things. That also carries on to marksmen, burrowers. Festers aren't really affected, so wouldn't really work for them. But pretty much any enemy in the game will have a stumble effect whenever the shotgun's used. And it can hit multiple things at the same time. So it is a really good crowd control option. And combining that with our insanity mode, it makes for a really quick, just absolute garbage removal for enemies. And on the bottom right, you can actually see that our insanity mode is close to leveling again, just because of the sheer amount of things that we've taken out with it in this wreck yard. So we're actually getting close to leveling that another time. And yeah, on occasion we'll get flashbacks to our own past.
The creatures are outside the door. I can hear them scream against them. They'll get through soon enough. While I wait to die, I just wanted to tell everyone who might be listening. I've been looking for some answer to what's going on. But there isn't any, there's no answer, there's no explanation. It's just what it is. We are at its mercy. I've seen the unspeakable, and I won't be at its mercy anymore.
So yeah, the guard was talking about he was looking for an answer, couldn't find one. It is what it is. Essentially, I'm in the crowd where I believe that Carnage is just that. It's messed up, absolutely screwed up, like from the beginning. And it's just what Carnage is. It's just evil and brings out the worst in things. But there's no definitive answer, it's kind of just what people draw themselves. Although there is a sequel to this game, so it does end up being kind of weird that it doesn't take place on Carnate, and it kind of just took away the mysteriousness of the place. It seems to be more around Torque himself. Because in the first game, it has more to do with Carnate as a place of just evil and malicious things that happen throughout all of the time you were here. But the second one takes place in Baltimore, and all of these things happen there as well, which has nothing to do with Carnate. So it does seem kind of rather odd that this is happening on a place of just pure evil and then happens to take place in Baltimore. Here we have an introduction of a new pseudo-trap enemy, the Hangman. Representative of just that, hanging as an execution.
Pick up the phone, T.
So we have to watch bloodstains on the ceiling.
That's not all. Look, it's over, T. You say you're innocent, but I don't know if I can trust you. I'm filing for divorce. You can't be a father in jail. I can't bring Corey here to visit you, or the new one. It's better if they just forget, for now. It's better for me, too.
I hope you've forgiven me, T. Things might be different if I had been able to hang on.
But yeah, we're gonna have to stop our phone call there. And Torg had been in prison before, again, probably due to his anger. There we actually get another insanity upgrade, so now we have the marksman's version with the explosion and bullets. It's a pretty decent version. The bullets are kind of random, but it does work well. But Torque was actually in prison before and caused a lot of familial issues because his wife didn't want a husband that was in prison. So she ended up breaking away from him because she didn't want a husband that was in prison all the time for their kids. But that's just more of the story as it goes. In this room, we want to drag that machine over the grate, because then it'll block the drain, and then we can go to the sprinkler access in the next room and activate the sprinklers. And since we activated the sprinklers, it'll fill the room since there's no drain, and it'll put out the fire, which will help us. But at the same time, since we made puddles, we're actually going to have mainliners spawning. You actually don't really need to worry about the mainliners in this room, because whenever you leave the room, the door will shut. So you can basically immediately leave this room unless you want to fight the mainliners, which I do end up fighting a few of them, but then I leave about 2 of them just because. So yeah, you can actually save yourself a little bit of time and ammo if you just exit the room. But here we have a Slayer coming down. If we go into the room to our left here, the security office, we can end up shutting the door behind us. But that Slayer ends up fighting with the mainliners in the other room. So he was kind of being a distraction in a way, but then I had taken out the mainliner that was messing with him, so he re-aggroed to me. Again, enemy infighting works kind of weirdly. They'll basically aggro to another enemy that hits them and chase them until they die. After that point, they will re-aggro to you. But yeah, if we leave the mainliner room through that cage door and then hit this button, it'll actually shut that room. So then the mainliners will be trapped in there like so. But the door physically won't open and they can't spawn on this side, so we don't really need to worry about them anymore. So yeah, that was a bit of a weird call, but for anybody that's unaware, conjugal visits are usually family visits to prisons and usually involve sexual things. So if you're wondering why the guy was so happy, there you go. Just a bit of an explanation. Though I do believe that conjugal visits don't exist in most states anymore. Very few of them, really. Reasoning, no idea. I assume probably had too many unruly people or somewhere along the lines, stuff like that. But in this room we do have to worry about hangmen because you can see the blood on the ceiling. That's why I'm staying near this lower area where there's no blood on the lower ceiling. And that Slayer flat out jumped through the ceiling. I have no idea why or how that happened, but he just returned to his home planet. So yeah, that was interesting. But there we can open up the cell blocks and get a bit of a preview of an area next.
This is Corrections Officer Fuller at Abbott Correctional. Can anyone on the mainland hear me? Coast Guard, anybody?
But yeah, anytime you enter a room and you see bloodstains on the ceiling, just avoid them. It'll make it where you can just avoid the hangman entirely. But here's our friend the Slayer from earlier, and a hangman pops out. As said, anytime you get near him, a hangman will come down. If they do hit you, they'll start strangling you, and like the mainliner, you need to avoid or start throwing the directional stick back and forth as quickly as possible to escape them. But you can actually deal with them if you go up to one of the puddles and evade back or dodge or anything else before they can grab you. They'll actually pop down and give you time to shoot them. And here we can go down in this hole. We can also go further down the prison area. I just hop down the hole. There's some diverging paths in this game, so it's kind of whatever you want to do at that point, but I just kind of go with the story and go down into the hole in the prison cell. But these chains hanging from the ceiling, you can actually see later on. They're gonna be an enemy type later on. But for now, we just deal with the enemies, and we'll go to the next area. And I did have some shotgun shells back here, so I did go back and get those.
You did this! It's your fault!
But our kids are still taunting us. And we're back to the basement.
You can look.
There is a bit of repetition in areas, so you'll get that every now and then where you go back to an area you've previously been. With new enemies, slightly new areas opened up, that sort of thing. But yeah, just carrying on in the basement. We did open up a new area, so we can start exploring the new place that opened up. And we do want to watch out for the Slayers on the ceiling because they can swipe at us from up there. And the shotgun won't blow them down. It will knock them down on the ground most times, but on the ceiling it doesn't have the same effect, and they will stay up there. And again, the shotgun is a really good crowd control weapon, just for the simple fact that it will blow things back. It also does quite a bit of damage at the same time, especially if you manage to hit really close. It does seem to have more of a RNG kind of aspect to it, where a lot of the pellets seem to do random assortments of damage and also have random patterns. Because I've had enemies where it takes like 2 shots and enemies where it takes somewhere between 6 and 7.
You would get so mad at us.
So it is kind of
I couldn't
weird.
even remember. I never understood how you could forget.
And regarding Torque's anger issues, it is actually explained more in the second one, but he apparently has a split personality disorder. One of them is called Blackmore, who is extremely violent and just really aggressive. So they do end up explaining more for Torque later on, though in the first one it's kind of odd because Blackmore just doesn't really exist. I don't know how much I care for the introduction of Blackmore, personally, for story reasons. It does explain that Torque had a reason that he killed his family, but at the same time, it's kind of weird that Blackmore just doesn't exist in this one. So, the story didn't really go the best in the second one, as far as my opinion goes, but some people may like it. And Hermes being a dick, blocking off items, or hurting us for taking items.
There's not enough blood on your
And he's also getting angry at us for not killing enough people because we're being good. So. But Hermes can eat a dick, because I like my good playthroughs. And this guy is rather interesting. I don't actually get him to go with us or anything. I'm not entirely sure if he can, or something broke with him, but I do try and help him.
That poor man is terrifying.
I'm pretty sure there is a side thing with this guy being a companion. Like, I feel like there is, but at the same time, I think he might have just broke. So. Because he starts talking to us, and he seems to have, like, importance to have a cutscene to introduce him. But at the same time, he just starts talking, and then nothing after that point. So yeah, in the interest of continuing on with the good playthrough, I don't kill him and just leave. I'm not sure what happened, if his AI was broken, if that's intended, but he doesn't do anything, so I just kind of leave him to his own devices, don't hurt him for not getting bad morality, and we kind of just carry on. But here we can actually use the spotlights. Since layers burn in light, we can use that to our advantage and make them run into it. Saves us ammo and just deals with them immediately. So yeah, super easy section. Activate spotlight, burn them, and then just run around until they essentially burn out. And since enemies will come out of the holes in the ground, the burning pits, I do actually just point the light towards it, because that will stop them from coming out of them. So it's just a super quick way to get rid of those. of just pointed a spotlight towards the ladder here in case something decided to pop out, but nothing really did. But now we're going to want to drop this box down this hole so we don't instantly die upon trying to get down it. It'll activate the explosives at the bottom, and then we can leave. Which, at this point, I did have a slight graphical glitch that never happens again, but a giant part of the field actually didn't spawn for some reason.
Run, Malcolm!
But I do apologize for it happening.
Roy always wanted to play
I
with his
think it
phone.
was just something to do with the loading, happened to mess up. It is still technically there, and it is solid. It's just the texture was messed up, and this is the only part that it happens in. Again, no idea why. You can also see that the baseball lines disappear, and it is there until I look straight at it. So I think there was actually just a problem with the POV. Maybe it thought I was looking the other way, so it unloaded that texture. But it does cause a slight bit of breaking of immersion, so apologies for that, but it just happened to work that way, and I don't know why it's this one very specific section that does it. But it is the only section that this happens in. Again, it is kind of odd. I think it had something to do with just the way that this area loads and POV of where I happen to be looking. Because it was there prior, and then it just disappears to never come back, really. It does flash in and out on occasion whenever I happen to look at specific angles, but for some reason otherwise it just doesn't exist. And I do try to keep looking away from it as much as possible so it doesn't break the immersion. But at the same time, it is kind of hard whenever enemies are all over the place. So yeah, other than this, the game ran pretty decently. I didn't have any crashes or any other particular things of note that really just destroyed the look. It was just that one section of the field on the baseball field that happened to not spawn. And I really don't know why. Like I said, I tried to keep eyes off of it as much as possible so it wouldn't break immersion. It's kind of hard whenever you're fighting on it, but afterwards I just don't look in the general direction. But with that, we're going to be across the building here into the fenced in section. We're going to grab the materials down below, and then we're going to be on into the next part. So, other than that, let me know what you guys think, and have a good one.